Lift and Love is a podcast rooted in faith, family, and the conviction that loving LGBTQ plus people is a calling to be embraced, not feared. Across episodes, hosts from the Lift and Love team and their guests address current topics, offer practical support, and share experiences related to LGBTQ plus issues in faith communities. Thanks for joining us on our mission to lift and love. We are so excited to have Amie Steele on with us today. Amie has written a beautiful Substack series that she's broken down into small bites that feel so relatable. And the one thing that I've known about Amie since I met her many years ago is that you are very gentle. You are gentle in your experience, in your recounting of your experiences with your children and with yourself and with leaders who are sometimes, aren't helping in ways that we need to be helped as parents. So we thought it would be really important for us to talk to you, Amie. Your experience is going to feel really just right along with so many people. And the way you do it is, as I said, it's just so gentle. So you can find Amie's Substack, Well With My Soul, and read through these stories, or you can listen to them on Substack and see her darling family. But today we will have some questions for you, and we want to go a little deeper and talk to you about your experience, because your experience is the same as many, 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 maybe millions of mothers who are balancing faith and these really precious children we've been given to care for and to raise up to be strong, wonderful kids. So welcome. We're so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
So Amie, we would love to hear from you. We've heard all the things in the Substack, but others maybe haven't read. So why don't you give us a brief intro to where you started with your kids and where you are now, and then we'll dive a little deeper into your writings, musings, and your experience.
Okay, perfect. I grew up in the church. I married my husband in the temple. We had 3 kids. And, the plan was working great for us. Our oldest daughter was married in the temple. Our second oldest, our son Hunter, had served a mission and had just got home. And about that time is when things started to change. He had come home and he was struggling with some depression. And so he met with a therapist. And in one of his therapy sessions, it came out, Hunter said he was going to take it to his grave, but it came out that he was gay. That was the first person he ever told, was his therapist, who then encouraged him to tell us. So I still remember he came in. He had went for a ride with my husband and told him, and then he came into my bedroom and said, "Mom, I need to tell you something." And he told me, and I was, to be honest, shocked. Like, I didn't expect it. He didn't ever have a serious girlfriend, but he went out on dates, went to all the dances. He was student body president. I never suspected that he was gay. So it did come as a shock. And one of the things he said, almost as soon as he told me he was gay, he said, "But don't worry, Mom, I'm going to marry a girl in the temple." And I remember just thinking, oh, good, because, we've got this plan and we've got these things. And in order for our family to be together forever, we have to do these things. So that was my first initial thought, was, oh, good. And a little bit of, oh, good, because what would people think of our family? I'm way beyond that now, but that was just an initial thought. But of course, I told Hunter I loved him, and then we kind of didn't talk about it for a few months. It was just one of those things we kind of knew, but weren't sure how to talk about it. A few months later, I was sitting with Hunter in the car. My husband was out talking to a salesman, and he said to me, "Mom, if you ever have any questions, you can ask me." And that kind of just opened the doors, and it was just an open conversation from that point. And it didn't take me very long. I mean, at first, my husband says, "Hunter, so maybe if you date as many girls as you possibly can, you'll find one that you're compatible with."
Yeah.
And I just remember Hunter calling us, literally sobbing on the phone, saying, "Mom and Dad, will you pray for me?" He was on his way to pick up a girl for a date. And it was that hard that he was calling us sobbing, asking us to pray for him. And I'm like, this is not right. And so it didn't take long for me to realize that path wasn't what was best for Hunter. There's a lot more that goes into all of that, but fast forward a few more years, and my youngest son, Presley, he was 3 years younger than Hunter, and he had just come home from his mission, and we were at a family vacation at Bear Lake. It was with all of our extended family, and our little family was kind of sitting in the corner of this room. They were playing pool, and he says, "Oh, by the way, you guys, I'm gay too." And it was just so nonchalant. I mean, Hunter's was like this big, "Mom, sit down. I've got to tell you something." And Presley's was just so, "Oh, by the way." And I asked him just a couple weeks ago, I'm like, "How, why was it so easy for you?" And he said, "Because I saw how you guys were with Hunter and I knew it would be okay." And so just the difference that can make, if our kids know that we will love them no matter what is huge.
I want to go back to where you talked about he told you and then nobody talked about it. That is a very common stage, especially for parents who don't know how to bring it up, who don't know what to say. And I just wanted to point that out to people because I think I don't want to get into this. I don't know if he wants to talk about it. I don't know, he's probably thinking, I don't know if they want to talk about it. I love that Hunter if you could meet Hunter, he's the brightest and bubbliest and sweetest person you could know, and without any guile. So when he said that, I love that it opened it up. Parents with children who are younger, it would be wise to kind of open that pathway up right away because though those not talking about it can feel a lot like we don't want to deal with this. We're not,
go back in the closet.
Keep it secret. We're not going to talk about it.
I was going to say, it reminds me of when my oldest came out, or before she came out, she had a lot of LGBTQ friends. But she never said anything to disclose any of her feelings, identity, anything. And so I would just start to say, hey, if this is where you find belonging, like if this is where you belong is with this community, that's absolutely okay with us. And she would, oh, no, those are just my friends. We're like, okay, no problem. Fine either way. And so, Amie, you said you were caught off guard. Some of us might suspect. And so you can start paving the way of like, if this is something that feels like this is part of your journey, your story, your identity, like, please know that we will love and support you. And if it comes as a shock, I love that Hunter initiated it, but a parent can too. They can say, how would you like me? I have questions. I'm excited to affirm, to learn. I've got questions. What's the best way for me to ask, in a way that shows that I'm really willing to learn?
Yes.
Not kind of questioning, like, are you being influenced by your friends or, however, but you're sincere. Help me know how to do the best I can do for you.
Yes. I love how you brought it up with your child, Darice, because, and if I could go back, I would open that door, even though I didn't suspect. Like, I think that's one thing we can do as parents is just to, and even say it. Like, I think sometimes we're afraid to say, if you happen to be gay or if that, because that might influence them. But I just think the value in them knowing that you will love them, even if you're gay or even if you're trans or whatever it is.
Struggling with the church or in trouble because you lied or and whatever it is, you cheated and you don't want you want to talk, whatever it is, like that open communication should always stay open.
Because Hunter was literally going to take this to his grave. Had it not been, and who knows, something else may have happened, but he was literally going to take it to his grave.
Well, I was struck by you talking about how he was sobbing going on a date, and my son had much the same experiences. And this was before he came out, but in a way, we're teaching our children to override what they know is best for them. And I can't see anything good in that. And that's where that sobbing is, right? That's where the pleading for help comes from, is like this torment between what I know for myself and what I'm about to do. And I think all three of us would agree that what he was doing wasn't right for him. And it would never be right for him to go out on dates with. As much I wanted it for my son before he came out and all of the same things, but we're really forcing our children to go away from who they are and from getting any kind of spiritual guidance because we're telling them what to do. And the expectations tell them what to do.
I think growing up, they have all this shame and secrecy because they hear all the lessons at church that marriage is between a man and a woman. And so the internalized message that they get during those formative years of their life is there's something wrong with me and I can't ever tell anyone this and I've got to keep this secret. And just the mental harm that alone does to these kids is just
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Well, and it's mental harm when it's in school or a neighbor, and when it's from a leader or in church and doesn't get checked, it's spiritual harm, and it harms their connection to the Savior and to their sense of who they are as a divine creature, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
I hate that. I hate that there is this, they're having this experience that says that I'm not loved the way I am by God. I can't stand it. It makes me sick to my stomach. And I think it does
Yes.
great damage.
Yes. And I think that is the biggest reason that I'm vocal about it. I mean, not everyone's as vocal as I am, but I am very vocal about sharing these things and the things that cause harm, because it just breaks my heart. And I think it needs to be something that's talked about and something that parents are aware of and something that church members are aware of. And because when we learn and we know better, we can do better.
Well,
Absolutely. One of the things that I love about your writing, Amie, is that I feel like I'm right on this journey with you from the beginning, not from where you've learned and coming from this perspective, but you start with these incremental bites of like, there was this, and then there was this, and then this happened. And you can see the progression of, I love you say, and once I saw it and felt it, I couldn't unsee it. And then you say, like, it cracked open a space where questions could finally exist. And I think for a lot of us coming from a faith tradition that is so rooted in certainty, to go from something that feels very uncharted and unmapped, it feels very bewildering. And
Yes.
I love that you can see your journey and your evolution on how you see the teachings that have been internalized by Hunter and also Presley that become something that's really harmful for them. And then you start to see it like, oh, I might not have, I used to have the proclamation hanging in my house. And then I read it when I had a gay couple coming over and thinking, I can't have them see this.
Right.
This could really offend them. So when you see it through different eyes and maybe not through your same like cis het privilege, suddenly those things hit so differently. And like you said, it cracks open a space where questions can finally exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think
And
that
that is
really
a
sums
really,
it up well.
Totally. And that's a really hard part of this, right? This
And
is
it's
such
scary at times too. I mean,
is.
it's because I could feel these questions and I felt these things. The reason I call it well with my soul, I felt these things that did not sit well with my soul. They did not feel good. And
it's
so
not as simple as just supporting your child or feeling like you want to follow them, or they're real questions about what is meant by eternal families and what is our, where are we going to be together? I remember just thinking, there's no celestial glory for me without my son, my brother. Like those, I can't, and I would say that I can hardly think of a person who would say, yeah, I think I'll be contented to not be with my children or in heaven. Like, it doesn't make sense. I don't think that our heavenly parents feel that way, that they would be contented without us and to have our complete family together. So it just says like something else, there's more for us to learn. And I think it's the work of parents with queer kids and LGBTQ people themselves to figure it out, and can't be told to us by people who don't understand, because they haven't been given that particular wound by which these questions come from, and this pleadings and really the inspiration comes through that same
and I think like
crack, right?
Yeah. And Amie, you talk in another of your Substack writings when it just in the moment that it hit you that this plan of salvation that has always given this comfort suddenly feels like you feel the exclusion. And I think that is the wake up call for many parents on this journey, is like the point to where my kid fits. And is that if they don't, then that's not heaven for me.
Right.
And it really does have you confront some things that used to be comfortable. And suddenly it's hard to take comfort in those things like, oh, that sounds lovely. Sign me up. No, that sounds like eternal punishment to me.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's why I felt, because the Substack was kind of a journal for me. It didn't start out as a Substack. A lot of the things that I would learn and realize, I would just think, I don't want to forget this. I need to write this down. So I had a Google Doc folder and tons of Google Docs just with all of these things. And then I just, I think there's such a misunderstanding of why people may leave the church. And I just wanted to share it so that people could understand. I remember shortly after Hunter came out, a former bishop of ours said to Randy, well, you and Amie aren't going to leave the church now, are you? And I remember at the time thinking, well, why would he say that? Like, no, we're not going to leave the church. But through this process and this journey, I felt prompted to share it so that people could understand. It's not a simple like, oh, my kid's gay, now I'm going to leave the church. It's not. You desperately try to find where your child fits in this plan, this perfect plan that I think I was white knuckle gripping onto this plan, trying to figure out where Hunter fits in and how we could make this all work. And that's why in the beginning I was like, oh, good, he's still going to marry a girl in the temple. And it's scary when you start to realize that there really, in that prescribed plan, there really isn't, unless he's alone his whole life, And then there's a lot of conflicting things because I dove in. Like, it wasn't like that happened and I stopped reading my scriptures and stopped studying and stopped praying. Like, you dive all in. You're searching the gospel library. And honestly, some of the things I came across were very hurtful. I mean, there's things that have been said in the past. Things are getting a lot better for sure, but a lot of things that were very hurtful and, praying more than ever and just searching for something. And I remember shortly after Hunter came out, General Conference was coming up and I fasted and I prayed because I'm like, okay, this is new for us. I know we're going to hear something. And it was Dallin H. Oaks before he was prophet. And it was talking about this perfect plan. And he's reiterating that marriage is between a man and a woman. And I just remember thinking, but what about my son? Like, okay, I know that's what you're saying, but what about all these people? And as I started listening to other people's stories, it's not just my son's. I mean, there's so many. And that has just completely opened my heart to you guys on Lift and Love, all the stories you share.
Yeah.
Opening, and then I'm sure you guys do this too. When you go to church and when you go to the temple, you then see things through the lens of someone who is LGBTQ. And
Yes.
I remember one day getting ready for church and we were in the young single adult ward. And I almost dreaded it because I'm like, what's going to be said today, that'll be harmful. And I remember just pleading with Heavenly Father. I was putting my makeup on, why is this so hard for me? Like, I get why it would be hard for Hunter, but why is it so hard for me? And this overwhelming feeling. And it was because you're his mom. If this didn't hurt you, then I'd be concerned, but you're his mother. That's why it's hard for you, because you're seeing it, how it would affect him. So
Totally.
Yeah,
And
that
I
really
think,
hit me when I read that.
I think it's really important that, like, research has just recently shown us that part of our children's DNA stays in us and part of our DNA stays in them, right? It's in our brain, actually. And I think that is the most divine piece of being a mother, that not only do you give birth to a child, but that there's a piece of them in you always. And that's where the protection, we are meant to be their protectors, to help guide them, to support them forever, right?
Yeah,
That's
I love that.
biological. And it's part of the way women are wired, the way mothers are wired.
Well, there's those that also that adopt that I think can be just as fiercely, like whether it's biological in a physical sense, but I think there's also just that emotional connection that there we're just tethered. It is amazing that even if there's not that biological connection, there is this fierce tethering that happens in an emotional connection that is, it's just a beautiful, profound thing.
Yeah. And it's supposed to. And so when people say, well, moms are just, they're just emotional and they're emotionally dealing with this. It's like, yes, we're supposed to be dealing emotionally with our children and guiding them to this idea that there is a God and that the God loves them and that they are valued. There's a line in the temple ceremony that really hit me one day. And it was that every living thing and person has a divine purpose to fulfill the full measure of its creation. Not just men and women, not just mothers and fathers, not just husbands and wives, but every living thing has a divine mission. And we just, because we so easily dismiss our gay and our trans kids without actually discussing what could that divine measure, what could that full measure of their creation bring? We don't spend any time wondering about that, but yet it's in a temple ceremony, I think at least twice. And the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, of course he's got one. There's full measure of his creation. He's supposed to fulfill something. And it's going to be very different than other children, other people. And I love that. Yeah. I mean, there's reasons to question why we feel so uncomfortable with this doctrine, like you said, that excludes rather includes.
Yes.
And I think the work is from parents that have to do it. We have to do this and help other people understand our children and kids that aren't our children.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel really strongly about that. And that is the job of protecting and providing for our children, is providing that those spiritual connections, and providing them mental health, like good mental health and good understanding that they are valuable, super valuable, exactly the way they are.
I think, and providing them hope, because I think a lot of them, because of those messages that they internalize, they're hopeless. Like, they don't see the hope for their life. I mean, being alone your entire life, what's hopeful about that? You know, I mean, you hear stories of people ending their lives to get on to the next life where they will be fixed, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, we need to provide them hope, because they can have a beautiful, fulfilling life. And we need to help provide that hope, because I think a lot of them are lacking that.
Totally.
I agree. I love that. One of the things that I think parents who are maybe just stepping in, like dipping a toe into these waters, and maybe having those fears that are echoed by was a bishop that was like, well, so are you going to leave the church? And they're like, oh my gosh, does this mean it's, the writings on the wall? I love that you wrote, I've come to believe that God's love is bigger than fear, stronger than certainty, and present even in the questions.
Yes.
And I've seen differently my advocacy and my support of my child than maybe my church leaders have seen it. And to me, God is in this work, and it has been expansive. Like, my faith has expanded as a result. My appreciation for God being all loving has really grown. And others, I think, see my actions and interpret them as, danger, warning, you're going off the rails because you're trusting your own authority. And I see that as this fear response. And you're saying God's love is bigger than fear and stronger than certainty. And I think that's something really profound and something to really keep close to your heart as a parent, with this stewardship of not just loving your kid, but learning to navigate this space, this intersection of faith and affirmation. It's not easy, and it may take you to different answers, different end results, but it can be a very faith expanding experience. It does not, the foregone conclusion isn't like, oh, you're out because you just didn't want to follow,
Right.
It's just the most oversimplification of the realities.
And I think it's so important as a parent to understand that it is a journey. I think in the beginning I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. Where does he fit in? Like, give me all the answers. And it really is a journey, and God will take you on that journey, and he will lead and guide you if you open your heart to him and open it to being taught, but not to rush things. Like, I've learned, I think there was a sense of urgency, like the end is near. I've got to have everything figured out and our ducks in a row. And I don't fear time anymore. I'm on this journey. And so I think that's just a natural instinct we have, is to want to know all the answers and want to have it all figured out. But it is a journey. I think it's been about 5 years that I've been in this space. And so it ebbs and flows. And sometimes they're really hard, and sometimes they're so good. And it's a journey. Yeah.
I think it's normal to want to get the answers because we're in such conflict. It's just really normal to want to get out of the conflict. It is so painful. Like, it's acutely painful every day. And like, you go to church, something is said, it takes days to get over. Then you're back at church, or you're listening to a conference talk, and it's just this, to get I felt the same urgency to get out. But then I realized what I was learning and how I was growing through it. And, in all other situations, we send our children on missions. They learn to love the people of Uruguay or Liberia. They learn to love people, and we love that. In this particular journey, which is part of humankind, right? The LGBTQ people have been around forever. We have fear in learning the lessons that are to be learned there. And you talked quite a bit about fear and not being in fear. I have a friend who's in the same place as we are, and she said, as a family, we just decided that we weren't going to go on fear. There was going to be no fear. We were just going to trust God. And I love that we're just not going to have fear, that he's not going to support our child, or that, we're just going to go on and on trust and love and listen for what's
And that
next.
feels so much better. Like that
It
feels
does.
well with my soul, to let go of
Yeah.
that fear. And another saying that just has always come to my mind as I've thought about these things are, who are we to put limits on God?
Yep.
Like, he is
Good.
so big and loving and knowing. And I trust him completely. And I'm far from perfect, but I can honestly say I would feel more comfortable meeting God and my Savior right now, because I am living my life in a way that feels right and true and good to me. And another thing I look out throughout this journey is, what are the fruits of this? To sum up the fruits of what this has done to my heart, this whole experience, it's more loving, less judgmental, more caring, more empathetic. Like, it has completely changed my heart. So when I look at the fruits of this journey, that to me is good. That feels right and well with my soul.
I
Yeah,
love that.
that's beautiful.
About going into your stake president, and when I don't know whether it was another Temple Recommend interview. I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you were very honest with him that you really believed that this was the important path for Hunter, who was getting. Do you want to talk about that and kind of what changes came about with that?
Yes. So just to back up a little bit, I had an experience. Hunter has been married for just over a year to his husband, Jake. And it was
So
shortly
sweet.
after Hunter and Jake had met, and they had been dating a few months. And I was at lunch with them, and they kind of jokingly started talking about marriage. And they said, hey, there's a ring store next door. Should we go look? And so we walked over to that ring store, and I was kind of in the background, and that salesperson was so cute with them, which just, because you always wonder, how are people going to treat? I mean, these are two boys coming in to look at rings. But as I saw them and saw the love between them, I got one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life, overwhelming feeling that this is good. And I had tears running down my cheeks. And it shocked me because in the back of my mind, as much as I supported Hunter and Jake and loved them, in the back of my mind, this was wrong. Like, this was not how it was supposed to be. So for me to feel this spiritual confirmation that this is good, when I've internalized that marriage is between a man and a woman, it shocked me.
Yeah.
But I think that it had to shock me for God to teach me that this was right for Hunter.
That's when you knew it wasn't from you. It wasn't you wishfully thinking
exactly.
or your confirmation bias. It really went against what your biases
what
were
I
at the time.
expected. Yeah. And I mean, it was just for fun. We were just going to go. So I did not expect that at all. But so then fast forward, my recommend had expired, and I went in and talked to my stake president, who is a dear friend. I don't blame any of them. They're all wonderful people, and I really believe they're doing the very best they can. So he is a wonderful friend of our family. And so it came to the question, and I don't remember the exact wording, but do you support anything outside of what the church teaches? Something to that effect. And I says, well, I support my son. He was engaged at this time. I said, I fully support him. And he says, well, as a mom, you're happy to see him happy. And he said, unless you're telling me something else. And I shared this experience that I had, ring shopping. I says, I truly believe that this is good. And he said to me, Amie, as your friend, I want to tell you you're just fine. But as your stake president, I need to tell you that you will not receive any revelation, inspiration outside of what the church teaches. And that was kind of I couldn't deny what I had felt. Like I said, that was one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had. So it's like, am I going to trust, he knows me as a person and as a friend, and he's telling me I'm okay. But this organization I belong to, I'm not. And it just came to where I couldn't deny that. I could not deny that. And I won't deny that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's not easy. Not
No.
easy, this part of the story. Because I think this is where a lot of people get scared. And fear's back in here, right? We got fear.
Right.
What is the stake president going to say? What are my neighbors going to say? What are the people in my ward? But if you look at this with no fear that God has your family, wow, is that just not so much easier? Like
Yes.
whatever
Yes.
happens, whether the leaders make decisions that you wish they wouldn't or whatever, like this is where the rubber hits the road. When you are able to say to a leader, I feel like this is what's good for my child, and I'm going to stand by that.
Yeah.
And there is so much power in being completely honest. Like I have been able to be completely honest with my church leaders. And there's power in that, I believe.
Yeah.
We moved out of the YSA into the home ward, and the boundaries had been redone. So it was a few of the people that we knew, but a lot that we didn't. And our bishop called us in, how's things going and how are the ward members? And I told him, I said, the ward members are great. Like everyone's nice and welcoming and good. It's the doctrine that I struggle with. It would be a lot easier if it was just a few ward members that maybe were, I don't know. When it comes right down to it, the people have been great.
Yeah.
At Hunter and Jake's wedding, we had the whole stake presidency there. We had ward members there. I mean, people have been wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, and
Wonderful.
you are right in a fairly smallish town in Utah, terribly tiny, but it's, it's in the middle of Utah and it's small. Yeah. And I love hearing that the people were good.
Yes.
The people were good. But there's still this piece that hurts, that disconnects you all from what you've been taught your whole lives.
Yeah.
This idea.
Yeah. And I think we all, the three of us, would probably agree that we have reached a point at some point in this journey along the way where we're not going to outsource our authority.
Yes, right.
And that there is a stewardship as a parent of an LGBTQ person or the loved one of an LGBTQ loved one. And we have a stewardship, and to consider that someone who's so wholly removed from us has more power and say in our family, that is not well with my soul. And I have been involved in the Lift and Love stories for long enough to know that it feels like there is this very strong pattern of divine confirmation of the divinity of these kids and the sacred role as parents that we have in helping to navigate, to advocate. And we're shirking that when we just say, oh, okay, and I'm not meaning to sound like you just need to just tell everyone to ignore what is being taught, but I think we need to consider our stewardship as well.
Yes.
Totally. And I think that if we look at scripture, there are endless stories of women making choices with God to the betterment of their family, and they almost always go against the norms. I mean, look at Eve, what she did for family. Rebecca, who switched the birthrights of her sons and caused, and she did that by the suggestion of the Spirit. And Esther, practically giving up being Jewish to become the queen. All these decisions that women make throughout our scriptural stories that they work with, they're working with God, but this outcome is very different than the norms. And that's all over the place. And these women, I mean, I used to follow. And think this was right, but that's long before I had real connection to the Savior. And now, I have that connection. How can I go against that? That makes no sense. And the same with both of you. I've heard from both of you. This is the hard work, and this is why I love what you've written so much, because you write it without glossing over the hard parts, without pretending that things don't hurt.
And it really shows a beautiful, faithful journey of and inviting God into the conversation every step of the way. Yeah, even when it's totally out of step with what is being told you need to do or follow or whatever. And your faith is there and God is there in each step. And I love that. It's a beautiful illustration of the complexity we face in this space, for sure.
And you're speaking it, which helps other people understand what they're going through and the things. You just enough of helping people understand. And that is truly the divine work of women.
And I think that's a huge part too, is understanding that we're not alone. Because like you said, there's how many mothers that are going through the same thing. And so for them to be able to read and, oh, me too, and sometimes you feel like you're on this deserted island by yourself and trying to figure this out. But there are so many mothers that are
quietly suffering and struggling.
Yes.
Quietly. Yeah.
And as you talk about all those scriptural examples, and even you two, and us just speaking up, the word that just comes to mind is courageous. It's scary. It's scary. Even sharing all of these things that I've written, I do live in a small town, and it's scary. It's scary to put all these things out there. But it is. At this point, if it can help anyone that's going through this journey, help anyone understand what it's like to go through this kind of journey, then it's worth it.
Absolutely. If people who are listening or watching haven't seen the Sanctuary documentary, Hunter and Jake actually have a role there, and they are darling, and it's so fun to see them flourishing. And like you were honest about, Amie, in your writing, like it's not always easy, and this hasn't been just like the easiest walk, but it's just fun to see those two who share, like, we never thought this would be a possibility for us. Like Hunter said, I was going to take this to the grave. This was never going to be something I would do. And to see that he couldn't, like, had he done what he had committed to do, he would not be where he's at, where he's just flourishing.
Yes.
It breaks my heart and makes me so happy to see what he could have missed. And I'm so thrilled that he didn't.
Yes. I know. I look at those two, it's been a year, and it's just so fun. They are so in love and so good to each other and so good for each other. And it's just the most beautiful thing to witness.
Yeah.
You realize that's what you want. You want your kids to be happy.
Exactly.
You want them to find a companion that they can share everything with and be a help and a support for. And so to have him have that is just, it's been beautiful.
And it confirms our teaching of it's not good for man to be alone.
Yes,
we know. Fully know.
We know that. We know that just from the epidemic of loneliness.
Yeah.
We know we have all the pieces. We just need to pull them together. We know. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for being so courageous, for being a mom who is really doing seriously divine work, helping not only your children, but others just know that their worth and their value in this world. So we thank you so much.
And for validating so many parents' experiences through your beautiful writing.
Yeah.
Oh,
with my soul. Take a look, everybody. It's phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Find all episodes of the Lift and Love podcast and so much more on our YouTube channel and anywhere you listen to podcasts. To learn more, visit liftandlove.org, where you'll find links to donate, volunteer, and to shop our store, where all proceeds go back to run the many Lift and Love programs. Thank you for everything you do to lift and love.